The screaming had been going on for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of a 6-year-old boy's anguish echoing off the sterile walls of Mercy Hospital's emergency room. 47 minutes of other patients staring, whispering, judging. 47 minutes of Dr. Sarah Mitchell trying everything, every technique, every trick, every desperate prayer, to calm her son Theo, while simultaneously trying to disappear into the floor. "Can't you control your child?" An elderly woman muttered loud enough to be heard over the chaos. Sarah's hands trembled as she tried again to wrap her arms around Theo, who was arching his back, hitting himself, lost in a meltdown that showed no signs of ending. She was a doctor, an ER physician. She saved lives every single day, but she couldn't save her own son from the storm raging inside his mind. That's when she heard it. A voice, rough from disuse, cracking with fever, but carrying a melody so hauntingly beautiful it seemed to stop time itself. "Hush now, soldier. Lay down your gun. The battle's over, the fighting's done. Stars are watching, moon standing guard. Sleep now, warrior. You fought so hard." Theo stopped screaming. Just stopped. And in the sudden silence, Sarah looked up to see a homeless man. She could smell him from 15 feet away, singing to absolutely no one, lost in some memory that had pulled him away from this world entirely. His eyes were closed. Tears streamed down his gaunt, unshaven face. He wasn't singing to help. He didn't even know they existed. He was singing to ghosts. But Theo, her beautiful, broken, unreachable son, walked across the waiting room like he was being pulled by an invisible thread. He sat down next to this stranger, who society had rendered invisible, and he leaned his small body against the man's side. The homeless veteran's eyes opened, confused, still half lost in whatever memory had taken him. He looked down at the child against him, and something in his face cracked wide open. The man kept singing, softer now, and Theo's eyes slowly closed. Within 3 minutes, her son, who hadn't slept through the night in 2 years, was asleep against a homeless stranger in an ER waiting room. Sarah stood frozen, watching the impossible happen in front of her. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that this moment, this song, this broken man would change everything. That 3 years from now she'd be standing in a church wearing white, while that same voice sang a different song, and Theo would be standing beside them both, no longer lost, no longer alone. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. And if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been judged for something beyond your control, you'll understand why this moment mattered so much. 3 hours earlier, Marcus Webb had made a decision that went against every stubborn bone in his body. He was going to ask for help. The fever had been building for 5 days now. What started as a cold had turned into something that made his chest feel like it was wrapped in barbed wire. Every breath hurt. Every cough brought up things that scared him. He'd survived 2 tours in Iraq, a divorce that gutted him, and 2 years living in his car. But this might be the thing that finally took him down. Marcus sat in his car in the hospital parking lot, forehead pressed against the steering wheel, trying to gather the courage to walk through those automatic doors. He knew what would happen. He'd been invisible for so long now that people looked through him like he was made of glass. The judgments would start the moment he walked in. The smell. He knew he smelled. 2 years of gym showers and gas station bathrooms did that. The clothes, everything he owned had been worn too many times, washed in sinks, dried on his body. The shame, that was the worst part. The shame of what he'd become. 42 years old. This wasn't supposed to be his life. Marcus closed his eyes and saw her face like he did every day. Emma. 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, obsessed with dinosaurs and the color purple. His daughter. His whole world. The reason he'd gone to Iraq in the first place. To build a better future. To pay for college. To be the dad she deserved. He'd come home to find out she was dead. Car accident. Drunk driver. Tuesday afternoon, 3:47 p.m. His ex-wife Jennifer had been driving. She survived. Emma didn't. And Marcus, somewhere in the Anbar province, got the news via satellite phone 26 hours later. By the time he made it home for the funeral, Emma had already been in the ground for 3 days. He hadn't been there to say goodbye. Hadn't been there to protect her. Hadn't been there, period. The guilt ate him alive from the inside out. His marriage to Jennifer dissolved in 6 months. 2 people drowning in grief, dragging each other under instead of keeping each other afloat. She remarried within a year, moved to Phoenix, started a new life. She sent him the divorce papers and a note that said, "I can't look at you without seeing her. I'm sorry." Marcus tried to go back to his old life. He'd been a music therapist before enlisting, working with kids, using songs and rhythm to help them process trauma, disability, pain. It was beautiful work that mattered. But after Emma died, every child's face became hers. Every session felt like torture. Every song reminded him of the lullabies he used to sing to her before bed, her favorite one especially, that old military song his grandfather had taught him. "Hush now, soldier, lay down your gun." He'd sung it to Emma every single night of her life, until he couldn't anymore. So he'd quit, stopped singing, stopped being around kids, stopped being around anyone. The PTSD from Iraq that he'd been managing suddenly became unmanageable when combined with grief. The nightmares got worse. The flashbacks intensified. He started drinking to sleep, then drinking to wake up, then just drinking. Lost his apartment. Lost his car. Well, lost the nice car. Ended up in this piece of junk. Lost every friend who tried to help because he pushed them all away. Some people, when they break, they reach out. Marcus had curled inward like a dying star, collapsing into himself until there was nothing left but a black hole where a person used to be. 2 years he'd been living in this car. 2 years of parking lot showers and convenience store meals, and the particular loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who refuse to see you. Homeless, invisible ghost. Another coughing fit seized him, this one so violent it left him gasping, spots dancing in his vision. Okay. He had to go in. Pride wasn't worth dying for, even if sometimes dying felt easier than living. Marcus grabbed his last $23 from the cup holder, checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. Jesus, he looked rough, and stepped out into the rain. The automatic doors of Mercy Hospital's emergency room whooshed open, and Marcus walked into the fluorescent brightness like a vampire entering a church. Everything was too white, too clean, too bright. He felt like a stain on their perfect, sterile world. The registration desk was staffed by a woman in her 50s, who took one look at Marcus and her expression shifted. Not cruel exactly, but definitely wary. The universal look of someone who's decided you might be trouble. "I need to see a doctor," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "I think I have pneumonia." "Insurance card?" She was already typing, not meeting his eyes. I don't have insurance." Her fingers stopped. She looked up. Really looked at him now. Saw the clothes that hadn't been properly washed in weeks. Saw the hollowed-out cheeks. Saw everything she needed to see to complete the picture. "You'll need to fill out these forms. It's a 4-hour wait minimum, possibly longer." Her tone had shifted from wary to dismissive. Marcus took the clipboard and pen, walked to the farthest corner of the waiting room where he could put his back against the wall, old military habit, and sat down. The plastic chair felt like a throne compared to his car seat. He started filling out the forms, his hands shaking from fever. Around him, life continued. A teenage boy with a broken arm sat with his parents, all of them on their phones. An elderly couple held hands, the wife coughing into a handkerchief. A young mother tried to entertain her toddler with a picture book. Normal people, people with homes and insurance cards and futures. Marcus was halfway through the forms when the screaming started. Every head in the waiting room turned toward the entrance where a woman had just rushed in carrying a boy of maybe 6 or 7. The child was in complete meltdown, screaming, hitting himself, his body rigid with distress. The woman was desperately trying to calm him, but nothing was working. She looked professional, doctor's coat over her clothes, stethoscope around her neck, ID badge swinging. Dark hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. "Theo, baby, please," she was saying, her voice cracking. "Please, sweetheart, I know it's too loud. I know. But Mommy has to work, I'm so sorry." The boy didn't respond. Couldn't respond. He was somewhere else entirely, trapped in sensory overload that had hijacked his nervous system. Marcus watched as the other waiting room occupants began the familiar dance. The staring, the whispering, the judgment. He'd seen it 1,000 times. People's faces when confronted with something that made them uncomfortable, something that didn't fit their neat little categories of acceptable behavior. "Autism," someone whispered. "Can't she control him?" another voice muttered. The woman, the doctor, heard them. Marcus saw her shoulders hunch, saw her try to make herself smaller, try to disappear while simultaneously trying to calm a child who couldn't be calmed. 20 minutes passed. 30. 45. The screaming continued, rising and falling in waves. The boy was hitting himself now, and the mother was crying while trying to stop him from hurting himself, and the entire waiting room had become a theater of judgment and discomfort. Marcus felt his fever spiking. The room started to tilt. He closed his eyes, tried to breathe through the pain in his chest, tried to focus on anything other than how much he wanted to be back in his car, alone, invisible again. That's when the fever dreams started. Suddenly he wasn't in the ER anymore. He was in Emma's room. Pale purple walls covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. The nightlight shaped like a triceratops casting soft green shadows. Emma in her bed, 7 years old, clutching Mr. Roar the stuffed T-Rex, looking up at him with those enormous brown eyes. "Sing the song, Daddy, the soldier song." And Marcus heard his own voice, younger, undamaged, full of love instead of grief, beginning the lullaby his grandfather had taught him. The one he'd sung to Emma every night of her life. "Hush now, soldier, lay down your gun." In the fever dream, Emma smiled, that gap-toothed smile that had lit up his entire world. The battle's over, the fighting's done. But Marcus wasn't in Emma's room. He was in a waiting room full of strangers, and he was singing out loud, tears streaming down his face, lost somewhere between memory and delirium. Stars are watching, moon standing guard. The screaming had stopped. "Sleep now, warrior, you've fought so hard." Marcus's eyes opened slowly, pulled back to reality by the sudden silence. He was confused, disoriented, not sure what was real. His face was wet. When had he started crying? And then he felt it. A small body pressed against his side, a child's weight, warm and solid and real. Marcus looked down and saw the boy, the one who'd been screaming, leaning against him, eyes closed, breathing evening out. The boy's hand had clutched Marcus's filthy jacket, holding on like Marcus was a life raft in a storm. Across the waiting room, the doctor-mother stood frozen, her hand over her mouth, staring at them with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Relief, disbelief, something else underneath it all. The boy, Theo, she'd called him, made a small sound, not distress, something peaceful, something like contentment. And Marcus, who hadn't touched another human being with kindness in 2 years, who hadn't sung a single note since Emma died, who had convinced himself he was beyond redemption or purpose, felt something crack open in the center of his chest. Not healing, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. He kept singing, softer now, the lullaby his grandfather had sung during World War II, that Marcus had sung in Iraq to calm himself during the worst nights, that he'd sung to Emma, that he'd thought he'd never sing again. And in a waiting room full of strangers who'd decided he was invisible, Marcus Webb became the most important person in the room, because sometimes the most broken people are exactly who we need. Sarah Mitchell couldn't move. She stood there, surrounded by her medical equipment, her education, her expertise. 3 years of residency, 7 years as an attending ER physician. countless lives saved, and watched a homeless man accomplish in 3 minutes what she hadn't been able to do in 3 years. Calm her, son. Theo was asleep. Actually asleep. Against a stranger who smelled like he hadn't showered in weeks, wearing clothes that had seen better decades, with hollow cheeks that spoke of too many missed meals. A stranger who was singing the most beautiful, heartbreaking lullaby Sarah had ever heard. The homeless man's eyes had opened now, and he looked as confused as Sarah felt. He stared down at Theo like he couldn't quite believe the child was real. His hand hovered above Theo's head, like he wanted to touch his hair but didn't dare, like he didn't have the right. The man's voice cracked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He seemed lost, unable to finish any thought. Sarah found her feet, crossed the waiting room slowly so she wouldn't startle either of them. Up close, she could see the fever flush on the man's cheeks, the way he was shaking slightly despite the warmth of the building, the exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Please don't apologize, Sarah said softly. You did something I haven't been able to do in years. The man looked at her fully for the first time, and Sarah saw intelligence in those eyes. Pain. Grief so deep it had its own gravity, but also kindness. Despite everything life had clearly done to him, there was still kindness there. What's his name? The man asked quietly. Theo. Theodore Mitchell. He's 6. He has autism. Sensory processing issues mostly. Loud places, bright lights, unexpected changes. They overwhelm him. Sarah's voice caught. He has meltdowns. Bad ones. Nothing helps. Nothing except music, the man finished. His hand finally touched Theo's hair. Just barely. Like he was touching something sacred. How did you know? I used to work with kids like him, a long time ago. The man's expression went distant. I was a music therapist, before. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Sarah could see the before written all over him, before whatever tragedy had taken this educated, talented man and stripped everything away until all that was left was survival. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, she said, offering her hand without hesitation. The man stared at her hand like it was a foreign object, like he'd forgotten people could offer kindness without expecting something in return. Slowly, he shook it, his palm rough with calluses and fever hot. Marcus Webb. Marcus, that's a good name. Sarah knelt down to be eye level with both of them. Marcus, where are you here tonight? Are you sick? A bitter laugh that turned into a cough. Pneumonia, probably. I've been putting off coming in, but... He gestured vaguely at himself, at the evidence of his deterioration. You need to be seen immediately. Sarah's doctor brain kicked in, professional training overriding everything else. Your fever is too high. How long has your breathing been labored? Few days, week maybe. Jesus. Sarah stood up, her mind made up in an instant. Stay here. Don't move. And please... Her voice softened, became vulnerable again. Please keep singing if he wakes up. I'll be right back. She hurried to the registration desk, where Patricia looked up with that same skeptical expression she'd had earlier. Patricia, I need room 4 right now. Dr. Mitchell, your shift doesn't start for another... I don't care. The man in the corner has severe pneumonia, possibly life-threatening, and I'm seeing him right now. Put it on my personal account if you have to. Patricia's eyebrows rose, but she knew better than to argue with Dr. Mitchell when she used that tone. Yes, doctor. Sarah hurried back to where Marcus sat, still frozen like he was afraid moving would shatter whatever spell had allowed this moment to happen. Marcus, I need you to come with me. We're going to get you examined, get you treated. Now. I can't pay for... Did I ask you about payment? Sarah's voice was kind but firm. You helped my son. Let me help you. That's how this works. But he's... Marcus gestured at Theo, still sleeping peacefully against him. I'll carry him. He won't wake up if I'm careful. Sarah reached down and gently, so gently, lifted Theo into her arms. Her son made a small sound of protest, but didn't wake, just buried his face against her shoulder. Marcus stood up slowly, unsteady on his feet, and followed her through the security doors into the ER proper. Room 4 was one of the private examination rooms reserved for difficult cases. Sarah settled Theo on the small couch in the corner, covering him with a blanket she kept in her locker for exactly these nights when childcare fell through, and she had no choice but to bring him to work. Marcus stood in the doorway like he might bolt at any second. "Sit," Sarah commanded gently, pointing at the examination table. He sat. For the next 20 minutes, Sarah worked with the focused efficiency that had made her one of the best ER doctors at Mercy Hospital. She listened to Marcus's lungs, fluid in both, worse than she'd hoped. Took his temperature, 103.2, dangerous. Checked his oxygen saturation, low enough to be concerning. "You have pneumonia and it's advanced," Sarah said, pulling out her prescription pad. "If you'd waited another week, you'd probably be on a ventilator. Another 2 weeks." She didn't finish that sentence. Marcus said nothing, just stared at his hands. "I'm prescribing antibiotics, an inhaler, and fever reducers. You need to take all of them, full course, no skipping doses. And you need rest. Real rest. Your body is trying to fight off a serious infection while also dealing with malnutrition and exhaustion." "I'll rest in my car." "Your car." Sarah stopped writing and looked at him. "You're living in your car." It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded anyway. Sarah sat down on the rolling stool facing him and made a decision that her sensible, cautious, been-burned-before brain screamed was insane. But her heart, the part of her that had just watched a stranger love her son with more grace than Theo's own father ever had, made the decision anyway. "I have a garage apartment. It's small, just a bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette. But it's warm, clean, and currently empty. My ex-husband used to use it as an office before." She swallowed the bitterness. "Before he left. You could stay there. Until you're better." Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "What? No, I can't." "You helped my son." "I sang a song, that's not—" "Marcus." Sarah's voice cracked, and suddenly the professional mask fell away completely, leaving only an exhausted mother who had been fighting alone for too long. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your child suffer and not be able to help them? To be a doctor, someone who's supposed to fix things, and not be able to fix the one thing that matters most?" Tears spilled down her cheeks and she didn't wipe them away. "Theo hasn't slept through the night in 2 years. 2 years, Marcus. He has nightmares. He wakes up screaming. I've tried everything. Weighted blankets, white noise machines, melatonin, prescription sleep aids that made him worse, child psychologists, occupational therapists, every specialist in 3 states. Nothing works. Nothing helps." She gestured to the couch where Theo slept peacefully. "And then you sing one song, and he just lets go. He feels safe. Do you understand what you gave him? What you gave me?" Marcus was shaking his head, tears on his face now too. "I don't deserve—" "Neither do I," Sarah interrupted. "I don't deserve a son who suffers every single day because his brain processes the world differently. I don't deserve to have my husband walk out because he couldn't handle having a defective kid. His words, not mine. I don't deserve to work 12-hour shifts and come home to a child who can't tell me he loves me because words don't work for him the way they work for us. But here we are, Marcus. 2 people who don't deserve what we got, trying to survive it anyway. So maybe—" Her voice softened. "Maybe we could help each other survive a little better. You need a place to heal. Theo needs what you did tonight. He needs music. He needs someone who understands. I haven't worked with kids in 3 years. I'm not the person I used to be. Neither am I." Sarah smiled sadly. "We're both just trying to figure out how to be human again. Maybe we could do that together." The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Why? Why would you trust me? You don't know me. I could be dangerous. I could be... You sang a lullaby and cried, Sarah said simply. Dangerous men don't do that. Men who've forgotten how to be gentle don't do that. You did it without thinking, without expecting anything in return. You did it because somewhere inside you, despite everything, you're still someone who helps. She stood up, pulling a key from her pocket. She'd been carrying the garage apartment key for months, unable to bring herself to rent it out because doing so would mean accepting that Brian was never coming back, that their marriage was truly dead. Take it. Stay for a week, 2 weeks, however long you need to get better. No strings attached. If you want to leave after that, leave. But... She placed the key on the examination table between them. But if you're willing, I'd like to hire you. Part-time. To work with Theo. Music therapy, like you used to do. I'll pay you whatever the rate is. You'd have the apartment as part of the arrangement. Marcus stared at the key like it might explode. I can't. Why not? Because I'll disappoint you. I disappoint everyone. I'll let you down. And then Theo will suffer. And I can't. His voice broke. I can't be responsible for hurting another child. I can't. Sarah saw something flicker across his face. Some deep wound that explained so much. She didn't push. Instead, she picked up the key and pressed it into his palm, closing his fingers around it. You already helped him, Marcus. More than you know. Whatever you're running from, whatever you think you can't do, you did it tonight. You gave my son peace. That's not nothing. That's everything. She stepped back, giving him space. Room 12B behind the main house. The address is on the key tag. There's food in the fridge. Help yourself to anything. Clean towels in the bathroom. The bed has fresh sheets. I'll be home around 7 a.m. after my shift ends. You can decide then whether to stay or go. Dr. Mitchell. Sarah, please, just Sarah. Marcus's fist closed tighter around the key, and Sarah saw the war happening behind his eyes. Pride versus need. Fear versus hope. The desire to disappear versus the desperate human need to be seen. Okay, he whispered finally. One night, then I'm gone. Sarah smiled, even though she didn't believe him. One night, then. She finished writing his prescriptions, gave him directions to the 24-hour pharmacy 3 blocks away, and watched him shuffle out of the examination room like a man walking to his execution rather than his salvation. After he left, Sarah sat on the couch next to her sleeping son and finally let herself cry. For Theo, for herself, for Brian, who'd walked away when things got hard, for Marcus, carrying whatever grief had driven him to live in his car, and maybe, just maybe, for the tiny spark of hope that had ignited in her chest when she'd heard that lullaby. On the couch, Theo stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked at his mother with that distant expression he got sometimes, like he was looking at her from very far away. Then his hands moved in the sign language they'd been working on for months. Where, singing man? Sarah's breath caught. Theo rarely initiated communication, rarely asked for anything specific. He had to go home, baby, but maybe we'll see him again soon. Theo's face fell, that familiar shutdown starting to happen. But then he signed something that made Sarah's heart stop. Safe, singing man safe. Sarah pulled him into her arms, holding him close, and whispered into his hair. Yes, baby. Yes, he is safe, and so are you. But she was lying. Marcus wasn't safe. Neither of them were. They were 2 people drowning in separate oceans, trying to decide whether reaching for each other meant salvation or just dragging each other under. Only time would tell which. Marcus sat in his car in the parking lot behind Sarah's house for 45 minutes before he could make himself move. The house was beautiful. Not mansion beautiful, but solid, comfortable, real. 2 stories, warm yellow siding, a garden that had seen better days but was trying. The garage apartment was separate, connected to the main house by a covered walkway. He'd filled the prescriptions, spent his last $23 and let Sarah's credit card on file at the pharmacy cover the rest, another debt he didn't know how to repay. The antibiotics were already in his system. The fever reducers were starting to work. His body felt slightly less like it was actively trying to kill him. But his mind was at war. You don't belong here. You'll ruin this. You ruin everything. But maybe... No. There is no maybe. You'll disappoint her. You'll hurt the kid. You need to leave before... A light turned on in an upstairs window of the main house. Through the curtain, Marcus could see Sarah's silhouette moving around. Then another, smaller silhouette. Theo. Still awake at 3 a.m., because sleep was a luxury his brain chemistry denied him. Marcus watched the shadows, remembering what it felt like to be a father. To love someone so much it physically hurt. To feel helpless when they suffered. Emma would want you to help them. The thought came unbidden, in his daughter's voice, and Marcus gasped like he'd been punched. Emma. God, Emma. She'd loved it when he worked with kids. Used to come to his sessions sometimes, would sit in the corner coloring while he helped other children find their voices through music. Daddy helps people feel better, she'd told her mom once. He makes the sad go away with songs. But he hadn't made Emma's sad go away. Hadn't been there when she needed him most. Hadn't protected her. Hadn't... Stop. Marcus forced himself to breathe. Forced himself to look at the key in his hand. Made himself decide. One night. He'd promised Sarah one night. He could do one night. Then he'd leave before he contaminated this family with his brokenness. The apartment key fit the lock perfectly. The door opened silently. Well-maintained, cared for. Marcus stepped inside and had to stop moving because the sudden warmth, the sudden safety of it, made his knees weak. It was more than an apartment. It was a home. Small, yes, but someone had cared about this space. There were curtains on the windows, art on the walls, cheap prints, but chosen with care, books on a small shelf, a lamp with a soft golden glow. Marcus stood in the center of the room and tried to remember the last time he'd been inside four walls that weren't public restrooms or his car. Tried to remember what it felt like to have a door he could close. Privacy. Safety. Space. He couldn't remember. The shower was his undoing. Hot water. Actual hot water, as much as he wanted, pouring over his filthy skin. Soap that smelled like eucalyptus. Shampoo. Conditioner. Marcus stood under the spray and watched 2 years of grime and shame circle the drain. He scrubbed until his skin was pink and raw, washing away the evidence of his exile from humanity. There was a razor. New, still in packaging, shaving cream. Marcus stared at his reflection in the steamy mirror, barely recognized the hollow-eyed stranger looking back. But he shaved anyway, slowly, carefully, watching his face emerge from under the matted beard. He looked human, thin, exhausted, sick, but human. In the bedroom, he found that Sarah had left clothes folded on the bed. Men's clothes, jeans, t-shirts, a sweatshirt. They fit reasonably well. Her ex-husband's, probably. The man who'd walked away from Theo because his son's brain worked differently. Marcus felt a surge of anger on Theo's behalf. What kind of man abandons his child? What kind of father just leaves? You left Emma. Not physically, but you left her anyway. Chose deployment over staying home. The thought was poison. Familiar. The voice in his head that had been slowly killing him for 3 years. Marcus sat on the bed, the actual bed with actual sheets, and felt his body start to give up its fight. The fever, the exhaustion, the pneumonia, the 2 years of survival mode all crashed down on him at once. He meant to lie down for just a minute, just to rest his eyes. He was asleep in seconds, and for the first time in 3 years, the nightmares didn't come. Sarah returned home at 7:15 a.m., exhausted, but wound tight with anxiety. Would Marcus still be there? Or would she find the apartment empty, her offer rejected, that tiny spark of hope extinguished? She knocked softly, no answer. Knocked again, nothing. He left. Of course he left. That was stupid, Sarah. So incredibly stupid to trust. She tried the handle. Unlocked. She pushed the door open slowly. Marcus was asleep on the bed, fully clothed in Brian's old clothes, one arm flung over his face. The bathroom light was still on. She could see he'd showered. His hair was clean, face shaved. He looked younger without the beard. Vulnerable. And he was here. He'd stayed. Sarah felt something in her chest unclench. She pulled the door shut quietly, left him sleeping, and went into her main house where Theo was already awake, having breakfast that their nanny, Mrs. Patterson, had prepared. "Morning, baby," Sarah signed and spoke simultaneously. Theo looked up, banana in hand, and immediately began signing frantically. "Singing man? Where singing man?" "He's sleeping, sweetheart. He was very sick. He needs rest." "When wake up? When sing again?" Sarah knelt down beside her son, smoothing his hair back. Theo rarely made direct eye contact, but right now he was trying, really trying, to look at her, to communicate his desperate need. "I don't know, Theo, but I hope we'll see him again soon." Theo went back to his banana, but Sarah saw him glance toward the window that faced the garage apartment. Waiting. Hoping. "Please let this work," Sarah prayed to whatever universe might be listening. "Please let him stay. Please let us help each other." Marcus woke at 2 p.m., disoriented and panicked. Where? How? Memory crashed back. The hospital. Sarah. Theo. The apartment. He'd stayed. Shit, okay, time to go. He swung his legs off the bed, ignoring how much better his body felt after actual rest, and started gathering his things. Which amounted to nothing. He had nothing. His car was parked down the street. His trash bags of belongings were still in it. He had literally nothing except the clothes Sarah had given him. That was fine. He'd leave the clothes, leave a note thanking her, and... A knock on the door froze him mid-thought. "Marcus?" Sarah's voice muffled through the wood. "Are you awake? Can I come in?" Every instinct screamed at him to hide, to pretend he'd already left, to climb out the window if necessary. Instead, he found himself walking to the door and opening it. Sarah stood there holding a tray with food, soup, crackers, orange juice, more medicine. "Hi," she said, smiling tentatively. "You slept for almost 7 hours. I wanted to check on you. Make sure you were eating, taking your meds." "I was just about to leave," Marcus said, the lie hollow even to his own ears. "Oh." Sarah's face fell, but she recovered quickly, professional mask back in place. "Of course, I understand. Well, at least eat something before you go. The antibiotics work better on a full stomach." She was giving him an out, a graceful exit. No pressure, no guilt, no expectations. Which is exactly why Marcus found himself saying, "Actually, could we talk? For a minute?" Relief flickered across Sarah's face. "Yes, please." They sat at the small table in the kitchenette. Marcus ate mechanically while Sarah explained what she was thinking. "I meant what I said last night. I'd like to hire you to work with Theo, music therapy. Even just an hour a day would be everything. I can pay you $2,000 a month, plus the apartment, plus food. It's not much, I know, but..." "That's too much," Marcus interrupted. "I don't even know if I can help him. I haven't done this in years. I might make things worse." "You won't. You don't know that." "Actually, I do." Sarah pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and turned it toward Marcus. "This is from this morning. He's been asking for you all day. He's never done that before. Never asked for anyone except me. Do you understand what that means?" Marcus stared at the video, his throat tight. "It means he's attached. Which means when I let him down." "If you let him down," Sarah corrected gently. "If, not when. Marcus, you're so convinced you're going to fail that you're ready to sabotage this before it even starts. What are you so afraid of?" The words came out before Marcus could stop them. "I had a daughter, Emma. She died while I was deployed. Car accident. She was 7. His voice cracked. I sang to her every night. That lullaby. The soldier song. It was our thing. Our special routine. And then I was gone. And she died. And I never got to sing to her again. I never got to say goodbye. Tears poured down his face and he didn't try to stop them. I was a music therapist. I helped kids. And I couldn't help my own daughter because I wasn't there. I chose to be 8,000 miles away instead of home where I belonged. So yeah, Dr. Mitchell, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I let myself care about Theo, if I let myself help him, I'll fail him the same way I failed Emma. And I can't survive that again. I just can't. Sarah sat very still, letting Marcus's confession hang in the air between them. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. Her touch was warm, solid, real. My husband left us 2 years ago. Theo was 4. We'd just gotten the autism diagnosis, and Brian couldn't handle it. He told me he didn't sign up for a broken kid. He said Theo would never be normal, never have a real life, and he wasn't going to waste his life taking care of someone who would never appreciate it. Sarah's voice was steady, but Marcus could see the pain underneath. He walked out on his 4-year-old son because Theo's brain works differently, because parenting got hard, because love required more than he was willing to give. She squeezed Marcus's hand. So, I understand being afraid of failing people we love. I'm terrified every single day that I'm not enough for Theo, that I'm failing him, that he deserves better than an exhausted single mom who can barely keep everything together. You're amazing, Marcus said fiercely. You're everything. He's lucky to have you. And Emma was lucky to have you, Sarah said with equal intensity. You didn't fail her, Marcus. You were serving your country. You were trying to build a better future for her. The accident was just... It was tragedy. Terrible, unfair, brutal tragedy. But it wasn't your fault. It feels like my fault. I know. And Theo's autism feels like my fault, even though I know rationally it's not. That's what love does. It makes us feel responsible for things we can't control. She smiled sadly. But Marcus, you helped Theo last night. Not despite your grief, but maybe because of it. Because you understand what it feels like to be lost, to hurt, to need someone to see you. Marcus looked at their joined hands. When had he last held someone's hand? When had someone last touched him with kindness instead of fear or disgust? 1 month, he heard himself say. I'll stay for 1 month. Try working with Theo. If it helps, if I can actually do this, then we'll talk about long-term. But if I start making things worse, I leave. No arguments. Sarah's smile could have lit up the entire city. 1 month, deal. They shook hands formally, like business partners, even though both of them knew this was about so much more than business. It was about 2 broken people deciding to stop drowning alone and start swimming together. The first session with Theo happened that evening. Marcus sat in Sarah's living room with a guitar she'd borrowed from a neighbor and absolutely no idea what he was doing. His hands shook. His heart raced. What if Theo didn't respond? What if last night was a fluke? What if... The door opened. Sarah led Theo in by the hand, signing to him as they walked. Theo's eyes found Marcus immediately, and his whole face transformed. He pulled away from Sarah and ran straight to Marcus, climbing into his lap without hesitation. Marcus froze, every muscle locked, barely breathing. A child. In his arms, trusting him, needing him. Don't mess this up. Please, God, don't let me mess this up. Theo's small hands patted Marcus's face, then pointed at the guitar. You want me to play? Marcus asked softly. Theo nodded vigorously. Okay, buddy. Let's see what I remember. Marcus's fingers found the strings, and muscle memory took over. He started with something simple. You are my sunshine. His voice rough from disuse but getting stronger with each note. Theo closed his eyes and leaned against Marcus's chest, his small body relaxing completely. Within 5 minutes, he was asleep. Sarah, watching from the doorway with tears streaming down her face, pulled out her phone and took a picture. Not for social media, not to show anyone, just to remember this moment when everything changed. When two broken men and one exhausted woman decided to become a family. 3 years is a long time, long enough for wounds to scar over, long enough for new patterns to become normal, long enough for 3 separate, struggling people to become something that looked remarkably like a family. Marcus Webb no longer lived in his car. He lived in the garage apartment that had started as temporary and somehow became permanent. He'd furnished it slowly, secondhand store finds, pieces that meant something. His guitar had pride of place by the window, photos on the walls now, mostly of Theo, but some of Emma too. He'd learned to hold both grief and joy in the same heart. He worked full-time now, his own private practice in music therapy, run out of Sarah's garage. Word had spread, parents called, kids came. Marcus helped them find their voices, their calm, their way through whatever challenge their brains threw at them. He was good at it, always had been. But now he could see how his own trauma made him better at helping others through theirs. Theo was 9 now, thriving in ways that seemed impossible 3 years ago. He still had autism. That wasn't something that went away, but he'd learned to manage it, to understand his needs, to communicate. And oh, how he could communicate through music. Theo played drums now. Marcus had introduced them 2 years ago, and Theo had taken to them like he'd been born for rhythm. He couldn't always process words, couldn't always handle eye contact or crowds, but he could sit behind a drum kit and express everything he felt through beats and patterns that told stories words never could. Sarah had changed too. The exhaustion lines had softened. She smiled more, laughed more. She'd reduced her hours at the hospital, something that would have been impossible before Marcus took over Theo's daily care and therapy. She was still an excellent doctor, but she'd learned to be a present mother too. And somewhere along the way, in stolen moments and quiet evenings and hands brushing while helping Theo with homework, Sarah and Marcus had fallen in love. It happened slowly. So slowly neither of them noticed until they were already there, already tangled up in each other's lives so completely that separation was unthinkable. It started with coffee together after Theo's morning therapy sessions, then dinners, then movie nights where Theo fell asleep between them on the couch, then Sarah's hand finding Marcus's in the dark, then a kiss that felt like coming home. Neither of them rushed it. They'd both been burned. Both knew how fragile happiness could be. But 6 months ago, Marcus had moved out of the garage apartment and into Sarah's bedroom. And 2 months ago, he'd proposed with a ring he'd saved for 3 months to buy, with Theo's enthusiastic approval, in their living room where everything had begun. The wedding was planned for next month. Small, intimate, just close friends and family. Theo would stand with them, their ring bearer, and the reason they'd found each other in the first place. But today was special for a different reason. Marcus stood in the music therapy room with his newest client, a 7-year-old girl named Sophie, who'd been through 6 foster homes and had selective mutism. She hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since her mother died. "It's okay," Marcus said gently, tuning his guitar. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. We can just be quiet together. Or I can play, and you can listen. Whatever feels right to you." Sophie watched him with enormous dark eyes, her small body curled into the beanbag chair like she wanted to disappear. Marcus started playing the lullaby, Emma's lullaby, the one that had started everything. "Hush now, soldier, lay down your gun." Sophie's eyes widened. Then, so quietly Marcus almost didn't hear it, she began to hum along. Just humming, but it was sound. It was communication. It was a child deciding she was safe enough to be heard. Marcus kept playing, tears running down his face, thinking about Emma, thinking about how his daughter would have loved this work, how she'd loved when he helped kids find their voices. Daddy helps people feel better. He makes the sad go away with songs. Maybe he couldn't bring Emma back. Maybe he'd carry that grief until his last breath. But he could honor her this way, by being for other children what he couldn't be for his own daughter, by showing up, by using his music to build bridges across pain. After the session, as Sophie's foster mother collected her, making a note that Sophie had hummed for the first time in months, Marcus found Sarah waiting in the kitchen with Theo, both of them covered in flour from some baking project gone chaotic. "How'd it go?" Sarah asked, reading the emotion on Marcus's face immediately. "She hummed," Marcus said, his voice thick. "Sophie, she hummed the lullaby." Sarah crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, and Marcus held her tight, marveling at this life he'd somehow stumbled into. This impossible, beautiful life that had started with a fever dream and a song in an ER waiting room. Theo appeared at their side and signed, "Proud of you, Dad?" "Dad?" Theo had started calling him that 6 months ago, right after Marcus moved in. Sarah had asked if it was okay, if it didn't hurt to be called Dad again. Marcus had cried and said it was the greatest honor of his life. "I love you," Marcus said out loud, looking at both of them. "I love you both so much." "We love you too," Sarah said, and Theo signed the same, his face glowing. They stood there in the flower-covered kitchen, 3 people who'd all been lost in different ways, who'd all found each other when they needed it most. And Marcus thought about that night in the ER, about the choice he'd almost made to stay silent, to keep his head down, to remain invisible, about how close he'd come to walking away from this. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Sarah said, wiping flour off her hands as she headed for the front door. Marcus heard her open it, heard her greeting someone, then heard her voice change, becoming stiff, professional, defensive. "I'm sorry, who did you say you were?" Marcus moved toward the door, Theo following behind him. Sarah stood in the doorway, blocking someone's entry, her body language screaming protection and alarm. "I said," a woman's voice replied, sharp with barely controlled emotion. "I'm Jennifer Webb, Marcus's ex-wife, and I need to talk to him, right now." Marcus felt the world tilt. Jennifer. Here. After 3 years of silence, 3 years of no contact, 3 years of him rebuilding his life from ashes, she was here. "Marcus?" Sarah's voice was tight with concern. He stepped forward, saw his ex-wife standing on the porch, and barely recognized her. She looked older, harder, worn down by whatever the last 3 years had done to her. But her eyes were full of something Marcus couldn't quite identify. Desperation, maybe, or determination. "Jennifer," he said, his voice flat. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." She tried to look past him, into the house. "Privately." "Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Sarah. She's my fiancée. This is her house." Something flickered across Jennifer's face. "Fiancée. Of course. You've moved on. Built a whole new life." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "I have." "Well, good for you." Jennifer's voice cracked. "Because I haven't. I haven't moved on. I haven't built anything. I've been drowning for 3 years, Marcus. Drowning in grief and guilt and regret. And I need your help." "My help?" "I can't do this alone anymore. Emma's death, it destroyed me. My new marriage fell apart. I lost my job. I'm barely holding it together." Tears poured down her face now. "And I know I have no right to ask. I know I burned every bridge when I divorced you, but please, Marcus. Please. I need—" "No," Marcus said firmly. "Whatever you need, I can't give it. We're done, Jennifer. We've been done for 3 years. You made that very clear when you sent those divorce papers." "I was wrong," Jennifer shouted. "I was grief-stricken and broken and wrong. You were the only person who understood what losing Emma felt like, and I pushed you away. I see that now. I see it so clearly. And I hoped, that maybe we could." "Could what?" Sarah's voice cut through, cold as ice. "You're here hoping to what, exactly? Reconcile? Get back together? Blow up the life Marcus has rebuilt without you?" Jennifer's eyes moved to Sarah, seeing her fully for the first time. You don't understand. You don't know what we went through together. You're right, Sarah said evenly. I don't. But I know what he went through alone after you left him. I know he was living in his car. I know he almost died of pneumonia because he'd given up on everything. I know he spent 3 years running from his grief because you told him you couldn't look at his face. So no, I don't know what you went through together. But I know what he survived without you. Marcus felt Theo press against his leg, seeking comfort from the tension radiating through the house. He put his hand on Theo's head automatically, grounding himself in the present, in his family. Jennifer, I'm sorry you're hurting, I really am. But I can't fix you. I couldn't fix you 3 years ago, and I can't fix you now. You need therapy, professional help, support. But you can't get that from me. I'm not asking you to fix me, Jennifer said desperately. I need someone who understands. Someone who loved Emma like I did. Someone who knows what it's like to lose a child. Please, Marcus, just talk to me. Just give me that. Marcus looked at this woman he'd once loved, once built a life with, once made a child with. He saw her pain, recognized it in his own bones. And he felt nothing. Not love, not hate. Just a distant sadness for two people who'd once meant everything to each other, and now were strangers bound only by shared tragedy. I'll talk to you, he said finally. One time, tomorrow, at the coffee shop on 5th Street. 1 hour. I'll answer whatever questions you have about coping with grief. I'll give you the names of therapists who helped me. But that's all, Jennifer. That's all I can give. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. That's all I'm asking. She left, and Marcus closed the door, leaning his forehead against it, trying to process the emotional whiplash of the last 5 minutes. Sarah's hand touched his back. Are you okay? I don't know, he admitted. She just appeared, like a ghost from a life I thought was over. Do you want her back? Sarah's voice was small, vulnerable in a way he rarely heard. Marcus turned and pulled her into his arms. No, God, no. I want you. I want Theo. I want this life we've built. I want our wedding next month and our chaotic kitchen and Theo's drum solos. I want everything we have and nothing from my past. Then why did you agree to meet her? Marcus thought about it. Because I remember what it was like to drown. And I remember how desperately I needed someone to throw me a lifeline. I can't be that for her long term. But I can give her an hour, point her toward help, and then close that door forever. Sarah nodded against his chest. Okay, I trust you. I love you, Marcus said fiercely. I love you too. Theo tugged on both their shirts, signing, Are we okay? Is our family okay? Marcus knelt down to Theo's level. Yes, buddy, we're okay. We're absolutely okay. Nothing's going to change that. But as Marcus lay in bed that night, Sarah asleep beside him, he couldn't shake the feeling that Jennifer's arrival was the beginning of something, not the end of it. And in the morning, he'd find out just how right he was. The coffee shop on 5th Street was nearly empty at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a black coffee he didn't drink, and sat at a corner table where he could see the door. His phone buzzed. Sarah. You've got this. Love you. Home when you're done. Marcus smiled despite his nerves. Home. Such a simple word. Such an impossible gift. Jennifer arrived exactly on time, looking more put together than she had yesterday, but still carrying that edge of desperation. She ordered something complicated, a vanilla latte with extra foam, which Marcus remembered was her favorite, and sat across from him. Thank you for coming, Jennifer said. I know this is awkward. It's more than awkward, Jennifer. You showed up at my house unannounced after 3 years of complete silence. You disrupted my family. You upset my fiancé. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have called first. I should have warned you. I was afraid if I gave you advance notice, you'd refuse to see me. She wasn't wrong. So talk, Marcus said. You said you needed someone who understood losing Emma. I'm here. I'm listening." Jennifer wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, staring into it like she might find answers in the foam. "Do you still think about her every day?" "Yes. Do you still hear her voice sometimes? Like she's calling from another room?" "Yes. Do you still wake up sometimes and forget for just a second that she's gone, and then it all comes crashing back and you have to remember how to breathe through the grief all over again?" "Yes," Marcus whispered, "every single day for 3 years." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought there was something wrong with me that I couldn't move past it. Everyone kept saying time heals, and you'll get through this, and she's in a better place. And I wanted to scream at them, because time doesn't heal this. Nothing heals this." Marcus nodded. "No, it doesn't heal. But it changes. The grief becomes something you carry instead of something that suffocates you. It becomes part of who you are instead of the only thing you are." "How?" Jennifer's voice broke. "How did you do that?" "Because I can't. I've tried everything: therapy, medication, meditation, support groups, moving away, getting remarried, getting divorced again. Nothing works. I'm still just broken. And then yesterday I was at the store and I heard someone singing. And it was that lullaby, Emma's lullaby. And I followed the sound and ended up outside your house, and I saw you through the window with that little boy and that woman, and you looked happy, Marcus. You looked whole. And I needed to know how you did it." Marcus took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "I stopped running. For 3 years after Emma died, I ran from everything that reminded me of her. I quit music therapy because it hurt too much. I pushed away everyone who tried to help. I lived in my car because I didn't deserve walls or safety or comfort. I punished myself for surviving when she didn't." He paused, remembering that night in the ER. "And then I met Theo, Sarah's son. And he needed something I could give him. And for the first time in 3 years, I had a reason to stop running, to use my music again, to help someone, to be present." Marcus looked directly at Jennifer. "The grief didn't go away. I still miss Emma every single day. I still cry when I think about her. But I learned to let the grief exist alongside joy, to honor her memory by doing work she would have been proud of, by loving people who needed love, by showing up." Jennifer was crying openly now. "I can't do that. I don't have a Theo. I don't have a purpose. I have nothing." "Then you find something. Volunteer with kids. Join a grief support group and help other parents who've lost children. Plant a garden in Emma's name. Write about her. Paint her. Whatever keeps her memory alive while also letting you live." Marcus reached across the table but didn't quite touch her hand. "But Jennifer, you can't do this by looking backward and trying to resurrect what we had. We had Emma. We had a marriage. We had a life. And then tragedy took most of it away. And we couldn't hold on to what was left. That's not your fault or my fault. That's just what happened." "I don't know how to let go," Jennifer whispered. "You don't have to let go of Emma. Just let go of the idea that you can ever go back to who you were before she died. That person is gone. You're someone different now. And maybe that person can build something new." They sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee, existing in the strange space between past and present. Then Jennifer said something that made Marcus's blood run cold. "I saw her, recently in Phoenix." "Saw who?" "Emma. I saw Emma." Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. "Jennifer." "Not literally," she said quickly. "I'm not hallucinating. I mean, I saw a girl who looked exactly like Emma would look now. 10 years old, same dark hair, same gap between her front teeth that was just starting to close up. Same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. Lots of kids look similar." She was at a park with a family. And I watched her for an hour, Marcus. I couldn't help myself. I just sat there watching this girl who could have been our daughter, living the life Emma should have had. And the father. Jennifer's voice dropped to something almost hypnotic. The father was playing guitar and singing to her. He sang the lullaby, Marcus. He sang Emma's lullaby. Marcus's heart was pounding now, alarm bells screaming. Jennifer, that's just a coincidence. Lots of people know that song. I know, Jennifer interrupted. I know it was just a random girl with a random family. I know Emma is dead. I'm not delusional. But seeing that, it made me realize something. She leaned forward, her eyes intense, feverish almost. I can't have Emma back. But I could have something like that. A family. A child who needs love. A second chance to be a mother. And when I saw you yesterday with Theo, saw how you'd built this new life around helping a child, I thought, maybe that's the answer. Maybe I need to do what you did. Find a child who needs me. Become a mother again. Marcus's coffee had gone cold. He set it down carefully, trying to keep his expression neutral while his mind raced through implications. Jennifer, that's good. That could be really healthy for you. Have you looked into fostering or adoption? I have, Jennifer said, and something in her smile made Marcus deeply uncomfortable. Actually, I've been in contact with an agency. They think I'd be a good candidate. I have a stable income now. I got a new job in Seattle. I have a house, references. I've completed all the required training. Seattle? Marcus felt something shift. When did you move to Seattle? 3 weeks ago. Got a job at Children's Hospital, head of pediatric nursing. Jennifer's smile widened. It's actually not that far from you. 30 minutes, maybe. I thought, maybe once I'm settled, once I've been approved for foster care, you could help me. Give me advice on working with kids who've been through trauma. You could even meet the child I get placed with. Show me some of your music therapy techniques. Every alarm in Marcus's head was screaming. This wasn't grief. This wasn't healthy processing. This was obsession that had found a new target. Jennifer, I'm not asking you to be involved in my life, she said quickly. I understand you have boundaries. I respect your new family. I'm just saying, we lost Emma together. Maybe we could honor her memory by helping other children together. Not as a couple. Not even as friends, really. Just as two people who understand. Marcus stood up. I need to go. Marcus? No? Jennifer, this isn't healthy. What you're describing, moving to the same city as me, planning to foster children, wanting me involved in that, this isn't about moving forward. This is about recreating something that doesn't exist anymore. You don't understand. I do understand. I understand that you're in pain and looking for any way to make it stop hurting. But I can't be that for you. And whatever child you get placed with can't be a replacement for Emma. That's not fair to them. And it's not fair to you. Jennifer stood too, her face flushing with anger. You're a hypocrite, you know that? You did the exact same thing. You found a broken kid and decided to fix him to make yourself feel better about losing Emma. The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus felt his breath catch. That's not... Theo isn't a replacement for Emma. He's his own person. I help him because he needs help, not because I'm trying to resurrect my dead daughter. Are you sure? Jennifer's voice was cruel now. All pretense of vulnerability dropped. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you found a vulnerable child who couldn't communicate, and you swooped in with your music therapy and your lullabies and made yourself indispensable. You built a whole new family to replace the one you lost, so don't you dare judge me for trying to do the same thing. Marcus grabbed his jacket, his hands shaking with anger and something uncomfortably close to shame. We're done here. Don't contact me again. Don't come to my house. Don't reach out to Sarah or Theo. If you show up again, I'll file for a restraining order. Marcus, wait! But he was already walking out, leaving Jennifer sitting alone in the coffee shop, leaving her desperate grasp for a past that couldn't be recovered, leaving the ghost of his ex-wife behind for the second and final time. Outside, Marcus leaned against his car and tried to breathe, tried to shake off Jennifer's accusations. tried to convince himself that what he had with Sarah and Theo was real and healthy, and different from whatever twisted logic Jennifer was operating under. But a small, poisonous voice in the back of his mind whispered, "What if she's right? What if you're using Theo to fill the hole Emma left? What if you're not helping him? You're using him." Marcus got in his car and drove home to the family he'd chosen, trying to outrun the doubts Jennifer had planted in his mind like landmines, waiting to explode. Marcus came home to find Sarah in the kitchen making lunch while Theo worked on his homework at the table. Math problems that frustrated him, but he was trying, his tongue sticking out in concentration, the way it always did when he focused hard. Normal. Everything looked so perfectly, beautifully normal. "How'd it go?" Sarah asked, looking up from chopping vegetables. Marcus tried to smile, failed. "It was complicated." Sarah set down the knife immediately, reading his face. "What happened?" "Can we talk later, after Theo's asleep?" Concern flickered across Sarah's face, but she nodded. "Of course." The rest of the day passed in a fog. Marcus went through the motions, helping Theo with homework, having their usual after-school therapy session, making dinner together, reading bedtime stories, but Jennifer's words played on repeat in his mind. "You found a broken kid and decided to fix him to make yourself feel better about losing Emma. Was that true? Had he been using Theo this whole time? Using Sarah? Building a replacement family because he couldn't handle the loss of his real one?" That night, after Theo was finally asleep, Sarah found Marcus sitting on the back porch staring at nothing. She sat beside him, pulled a blanket around both their shoulders, and waited. "She's moving to Seattle," Marcus finally said. "Jennifer. She got a job at Children's Hospital, lives 30 minutes away." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "That's surprising. She's going into foster care, wants to adopt a child, says she needs a second chance at being a mother." Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. "And she wants me to help her, be involved, share music therapy techniques." "Absolutely not," Sarah said immediately. "That's wildly inappropriate. She's trying to stay connected to you through—" "She said I did the same thing," Marcus interrupted. "She said I found a broken kid and swooped in to fix him, so I could feel better about failing Emma. She called me a hypocrite for judging her when I did the exact same thing." Sarah was very still beside him. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. "And you're wondering if she's right?" "I don't know. Maybe? I mean, look at us, Sarah. You have a son who can't communicate normally, who has severe anxiety, who needs specialized care. And I show up with music therapy and suddenly I'm the hero. Suddenly I have a purpose again. Maybe I'm not actually helping Theo. Maybe I'm just using him to make myself feel less broken." "Stop," Sarah said sharply. "Stop right there." She turned to face him fully, her eyes blazing. "Do you remember the first night you met Theo, in that ER waiting room?" "Of course. You were delirious with fever. You were singing to ghosts. You weren't trying to help anyone. You were lost in your own pain. And Theo responded to that. Not because you were trying to fix him, but because he recognized genuine emotion. Because your music was real, not performative." Sarah grabbed his hands. "You didn't swoop in to save us, Marcus. You stumbled into our lives by accident, and then stayed because we needed each other. All three of us. I needed someone who could reach my son when I couldn't. Theo needed someone who spoke his language, and you needed a reason to stop running from your grief. That's not manipulation. That's not using people. That's what families do. They fill in each other's gaps." "But what if—" "No," Sarah interrupted firmly. "No what-ifs. Jennifer is projecting her own unhealthy coping mechanisms onto you. She's trying to recreate what she lost by literally finding a replacement child and forcing you back into her life. That's not what you did. That's not who you are." Marcus felt tears burning. "How do you know?" "Because I've watched you, Marcus. For 3 years I've watched you show up for Theo even when it was hard, even when it triggered your grief. even when it would have been easier to walk away. You don't use him. You love him. Actually love him. For who he is, not as some replacement for Emma. She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. Emma was your daughter. Theo is also your son now, but in a completely different way. You're allowed to love both of them. You're allowed to build a new family without betraying the memory of your old one. And you're allowed to be happy, Marcus. You're allowed to stop punishing yourself. Marcus broke. 3 years of carefully maintained control shattered, and he sobbed against Sarah's shoulder while she held him, whispering that he was good. He was enough. He was loved. I miss her so much, Marcus choked out. I miss Emma every single day, and I feel so guilty for being happy without her. I know, baby. But Emma would want you to be happy. She'd want you to help other kids. She'd want you to love Theo. She'd want you to live, Marcus. Not just survive. Actually live. They sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other in the blanket, watching stars appear in the dark sky. Finally, Marcus said, I need to make sure Jennifer doesn't come back. She's not stable, and I don't trust that she won't try something. What are you thinking? Restraining order, maybe? Or just a clear legal boundary? A cease and desist letter from a lawyer? Something that makes it clear she needs to stay away from all of us? Sarah nodded. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow. We'll handle it. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I'm sorry I brought this into our lives. You didn't bring anything. She showed up uninvited. This isn't your fault. They went inside, checked on Theo, still sleeping peacefully, and went to bed. Marcus thought he'd lie awake all night, mind racing. But with Sarah's arm around him, and the solid knowledge that his family was real, was chosen, was right, he fell asleep quickly. He woke to screaming. Marcus bolted upright, heart pounding. Sarah was already out of bed, running toward Theo's room. Marcus followed, still half asleep, adrenaline spiking. Theo's room was empty. The window was open. And on Theo's bed, where he should have been sleeping, was a note written in familiar handwriting. You took my second chance, so I'm taking yours. Let's see how you like losing a child. J. Sarah's scream shattered the night. No, Theo. Marcus grabbed his phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands, while his mind tried to process the impossible. Jennifer had taken Theo. His ex-wife had kidnapped his son, and somewhere out there in the dark, a 9-year-old boy who couldn't process fear in normal ways, who shut down when overwhelmed, who needed routine and safety and familiar people, was with someone unstable and desperate. 911, what's your emergency? My son has been kidnapped, Marcus heard himself say, his voice oddly calm despite the terror flooding his system. He's 9 years old, autistic, nonverbal when stressed. The kidnapper is my ex-wife, Jennifer Webb. She left a note. She took him maybe 10-15 minutes ago. We need help. Please. We need help now. Sarah was frantically calling Theo's name, checking closets, under the bed, anywhere he might be hiding. But Marcus knew. Theo was gone. And they had to find him before Jennifer's fractured grief drove her to do something they couldn't recover from. The next hours would determine whether their found family survived or shattered completely. The police arrived within 8 minutes. 2 squad cars, lights flashing, neighbors coming out of their houses in robes and confusion. Detective Maria Santos took charge immediately. Mid-40s, calm competence, seen this before. She sat Sarah and Marcus down in their living room and asked questions while other officers searched the house and yard for evidence. When did you last see Theo? Bedtime, 8:30. I tucked him in, read him a story. He was asleep when I left his room. Sarah's voice was mechanical, shock settling in. And the window? Always locked, Marcus said. We're religious about it. Theo tends to wander if he wakes up disoriented, so we keep everything locked. So the window was forced? An officer appeared in the doorway. No signs of forced entry. Lock was open from the inside. Detective Santos frowned. You said the kidnapper is your ex-wife, Mr. Webb? Yes. Jennifer Webb. We met yesterday for the first time in 3 years. She seemed unstable. She'd moved to Seattle recently, was talking about fostering kids, wanted me involved in her life again. I refused, told her to stay away. She left a note. He showed her the photo he'd taken of the note before the officers bagged it as evidence. Santos read it, her expression darkening. This is clearly premeditated. She planned this, probably while you were meeting yesterday. Scoped out your house, figured out how to get in. How? Sarah demanded. How did she get into my house without setting off the alarm? Do you have a security system? Yes, but... Sarah's face went white. I turned it off when Marcus came home tonight. Forgot to reset it before bed. Oh God. This is my fault. If I just... Mrs. Mitchell, this is not your fault, Santos interrupted firmly. The only person responsible for kidnapping is the kidnapper. Now we need a recent photo of Jennifer Webb and any information about what she might be driving, where she might go. Marcus pulled up Jennifer's Facebook profile. She'd sent him a friend request months ago that he'd ignored, but her profile was public. Recent photos showed her looking healthier than yesterday, smiling, posts about her new job and new apartment in Seattle. Here, this is from 2 weeks ago. Santos showed the photo to another officer. Get this out immediately. Amber alert. She can't have gotten far. The next 4 hours were a blur of police activity, phone calls, desperate searching. They discovered Jennifer had rented a car, a gray Honda Accord, license plate already distributed to every cop in Washington state. Security footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera caught her leaving their street at 11:47 p.m., Theo visible in the back seat, appearing asleep or sedated. Sedated? Sarah's voice broke. She drugged him? We don't know that for certain, Santos said carefully. He might just be asleep. But everyone in the room knew Theo didn't sleep peacefully in unfamiliar situations. If he was quiet in that car, Jennifer had done something to make him quiet. Marcus stood at the window, staring out at the dark street, feeling more helpless than he had since the day he got the call about Emma. History repeating. Another child in danger. Another situation where his choices had led to disaster. If I hadn't met with her, if I hadn't let her back into my life, even for an hour, if I'd filed that restraining order immediately instead of waiting. Marcus, Sarah's hand on his shoulder. Stop. I can see what you're thinking. This isn't your fault. She took him because of me. Because I rejected her. She took him because she's mentally ill and dangerous. That's not on you. At 3:47 a.m., Detective Santos's phone rang. She listened intently, her face unreadable, then hung up. We found the rental car, abandoned at a rest stop on I-5 South, about 90 miles from here. No sign of Jennifer or Theo, but there's security footage from the rest stop. She pulled up a video on her phone, showed it to Marcus and Sarah. She switched cars. That's a dark blue Toyota Camry. Probably also a rental under a fake name. She planned this carefully. Where would she go? Marcus asked desperately. Does she have family, friends? According to her social media and recent records, no close family. Parents are deceased, no siblings. The few friends listed all live in Phoenix, where she moved from. Phoenix, Sarah said suddenly. She told you she saw a girl who looked like Emma in Phoenix, at a park. She was obsessed with this little girl. What if she's going back there? What if she's completely delusional and thinks Theo is some kind of replacement? Santos was already on her phone. I need contact with Phoenix PD immediately. Possible kidnapping victim heading to your jurisdiction. The sun came up on the longest night of Marcus's life. Sarah sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes red from crying, but no tears left. Marcus made coffee neither of them would drink, his hands moving automatically while his mind spun through worst-case scenarios. What if they don't find him? What if Jennifer hurts him? What if Theo's autism makes him unable to communicate where he is or who he's with? What if... Mr. Webb? Detective Santos appeared in the doorway, her phone still pressed to her ear. Phoenix PD located the vehicle. It's parked outside a park in North Phoenix, the Foothills Park. Officers are en route. Marcus and Sarah were in their car 30 seconds later, following the police convoy, breaking every speed limit on the way to Boeing Field where a police helicopter was waiting to fly them to Phoenix. The flight took 2 hours and felt like 2 years. When they finally touched down, Phoenix PD was waiting to escort them to Foothills Park, where a standoff was in progress. Detective Emma Ruiz from Phoenix PD met them at the perimeter. Your son is alive and visible. Jennifer Webb has barricaded herself and Theo inside the park's amphitheater. She's armed. We don't know with what. And she's refusing to communicate with negotiators. Armed? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. She made threats about ending the suffering for both of them. We're taking it very seriously. Let me talk to her, Marcus said immediately. She wanted to talk to me. Let me try. Sir, that's not protocol. I don't care about protocol, Marcus shouted. That's my son in there with a mentally ill woman who blames me for her problems. Let me try to fix this before she does something we can't undo. Detective Ruiz looked at Detective Santos, who'd flown down with them. Some silent communication passed between them. 5 minutes, Ruiz finally said. You get 5 minutes to try talking her down. If it doesn't work, our tactical team goes in. They gave Marcus a radio and a bulletproof vest. They positioned him behind a patrol car with a clear line of sight to the amphitheater, where Jennifer and Theo were holed up. Marcus raised the bullhorn, his voice shaking. Jennifer, it's Marcus. I'm here. Talk to me, please. Silence. Then a woman's voice, thin and wavering, amplified by the amphitheater's acoustics. You came. Of course I came. Jennifer, please. Let Theo go. He's scared. He doesn't understand what's happening. Whatever you're angry about, whatever you need to say to me, I'll listen. But please let him go first. No. Jennifer's voice hardened. If I let him go, you'll leave. You'll disappear again. Everyone disappears. Emma disappeared. You disappeared. Everyone I love just goes away. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. I'll stay as long as you need me to stay. Just let Theo go. He looks like her, you know, Jennifer said, and Marcus heard the complete disconnection from reality in her voice. Theo. He has Emma's eyes. Same shade of brown. Same way of looking at the world like it's confusing and beautiful at the same time. Marcus's blood ran cold. Jennifer. Theo is not Emma. He's his own person. He has a mother who loves him. He has a family waiting for him. He's not a replacement for our daughter. I know that! Jennifer screamed. I'm not crazy. I know Emma is dead. But if I can't have her, why do you get a replacement? Why do you get to build a new family and be happy while I have nothing? You can have something too. You can build a new life. But not like this. Not by taking someone else's child. Not by hurting an innocent kid who did nothing wrong. He's not innocent, Jennifer said, her voice going cold. None of you are. You all moved on. Forgot Emma. Forgot she ever existed. Well, I'm making sure no one forgets. I'm making sure... Jennifer, stop! The shout came from Sarah, who'd grabbed another bullhorn and was screaming with the full force of her desperation. You want to hurt someone? Hurt me. I'm the one who took Marcus away from you. I'm the one who gave him a new family. But leave my son alone. He's 9 years old. He's autistic. He's terrified. He needs his routine, his safe people, his home. Please, please, I'm begging you. Mother to mother. You know what it's like to lose a child. Don't make me know that pain too. Please. Silence stretched like taffy, long and thin and ready to snap. Then a small voice, breaking through the standoff like a beam of light through storm clouds. Mommy? Theo. Theo's voice speaking out loud, something he rarely did even in the best circumstances. Mommy, where are you? I want to go home. Sarah dropped the bullhorn and ran before anyone could stop her, ran toward the amphitheater, ran toward her son's voice with the complete abandon of a mother who hears her child calling. Marcus ran after her. Police shouted, tried to grab them, but they were already past the perimeter, already running across the open park toward the amphitheater where Jennifer stood at the entrance holding Theo's hand, a knife visible in her other hand. Jennifer saw them coming and something in her face just crumbled. The delusion, the anger, the desperate grasping for control, all of it fell away and left behind just a broken woman who'd gone too far and knew it. She let go of Theo's hand. "Run, Theo," she said quietly. "Go to your mommy." Theo ran, stumbling, crying, disoriented, but running. Sarah caught him and collapsed to her knees, wrapping her arms around him, sobbing into his hair while Theo clung to her and said, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," over and over like a prayer. Marcus reached Jennifer just as the tactical team swarmed in. He stood between her and the armed officers, facing his ex-wife, seeing clearly for the first time in 3 years who she'd become. Someone who'd drowned in grief and pulled everyone around her under in the process. "I'm sorry," Jennifer whispered, tears streaming. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I just wanted to stop hurting. I wanted to feel like I mattered to someone again." "You matter," Marcus said quietly. "But this," he gestured at the chaos, the police, the terrified child being examined by paramedics. "This isn't how you prove it. You need help, Jennifer. Real help. And you need to accept that you can't fix your grief by taking pieces of other people's lives." Police moved in, taking the knife, putting Jennifer in handcuffs, reading her rights. She didn't resist, just kept saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, until they put her in the back of a cruiser and drove away. Marcus turned and walked to where Sarah sat with Theo, both of them being checked by paramedics. Theo was physically unharmed, slightly dehydrated, with traces of sedatives in his system, but nothing that wouldn't wear off in hours. Emotionally was another story. Marcus knelt down beside them, and Theo immediately reached for him, signing frantically, "Scared. So scared. Bad lady. Wanna go home." "I know, buddy, I know. It's over now. You're safe. We're going home." Theo launched himself at Marcus, holding on with all his strength, and Marcus held him back just as tight, thinking about how close they'd come to losing everything, how fragile happiness was, how quickly it could shatter. But it hadn't shattered. They'd survived. They were all still here. Detective Ruiz approached as paramedics finished their examination. "He's going to need trauma counseling. What he went through, being kidnapped, drugged, held hostage, that's going to have lasting effects." "We'll get him whatever he needs," Sarah said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Jennifer Webb will be charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, and a list of other charges. She won't be getting out of prison for a very long time. Marcus felt nothing hearing that. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just sad resignation. Jennifer had destroyed herself trying to recreate what she'd lost. And in the process, she'd almost destroyed them too. 3 months after the kidnapping, Marcus stood in his therapy room watching Theo teach a new student how to play basic drum beats. The student was a 7-year-old girl named Maya who'd been removed from an abusive home and placed in foster care. She hadn't spoken in 6 weeks, but she could tap rhythms on the drums, and that was communication. That was connection. That was healing starting. Theo was patient with her, showing her where to place her hands, demonstrating simple patterns. He was signing to her. Maya's foster mother was teaching her sign language, and Maya was responding, slowly opening up. Theo had come so far in 3 months. The kidnapping had set him back initially, nightmares, regression in communication, heightened anxiety. But with intensive therapy, with safety, with love, he was working through it, finding his equilibrium again. And he'd become protective of other kids who were hurting. Started asking Marcus if he could help in therapy sessions. Wanted to show other children that communication didn't have to be verbal. That trauma could be processed through music and rhythm and connection. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Surgery finished early. Home in 20. Pizza for dinner? Marcus smiled. Perfect. Love you. Love you too. Tell Theo I love him, and I'm bringing the dinosaur chicken nuggets he likes. The wedding had been postponed after the kidnapping, rescheduled for next month. Small ceremony at home, just close friends and Theo standing with them as they made official what had already been true for years. They were a family. Not perfect, not undamaged, but real and chosen and theirs. Jennifer was serving a 15-year sentence in a facility that specialized in mental health treatment. Marcus had written her one letter, not for her sake but for his own. Forgiveness, not because she deserved it, but because carrying anger was too heavy. She'd written back once, apologizing, explaining, asking nothing. Marcus had read it, acknowledged the words, and then let it go. She was his past. Sarah and Theo were his future. The therapy session ended. Maya's foster mother collected her, making a note that Maya had communicated through drumming for the first time. Progress. Small, but real. After they left, Theo signed to Marcus. Can I ask you something? Of course, buddy, anything. Are you still sad about Emma? Marcus's breath caught. Theo rarely brought up Emma, though Marcus had shared stories about her, shown him pictures, made her part of their family history instead of a secret to be buried. Yeah, Marcus said honestly. I'm still sad sometimes. I miss her. But it's a different kind of sad now. Not the kind that makes it hard to breathe. Just the kind that reminds me she was important. That she mattered. I wish I could have met her, Theo signed. She would have loved you, Marcus said, voice thick. She would have thought you were the coolest kid ever. She was really into dinosaurs, and I know you'd have talked for hours about T-Rexes and Triceratops. Theo smiled, then signed something that made Marcus's heart stop. I'm glad you're my dad. Even if we didn't start that way. Even if I'm not Emma. I'm glad you chose me. Marcus pulled Theo into a hug, holding him close while tears ran down his face. I'm glad I chose you too, Theo. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and your mom. You saved my life. Do you know that? Theo nodded against his chest. You saved mine too. Bad lady tried to take me, but you came. You always come when I need you. Always, Marcus promised. Always, buddy. Sarah came home with pizza and dinosaur chicken nuggets as promised. They ate dinner together at the kitchen table, now expanded to seat 3 comfortably, and talked about their days. Normal, boring, perfect. After Theo went to bed, Sarah and Marcus sat on the back porch like they did most nights, wrapped in a blanket, watching stars. You know what tomorrow is? Sarah asked. Wednesday? No, you goof. 3 years. It's been exactly 3 years since that night in the ER. 3 years since you sang to Theo and everything changed. Marcus thought about that. 3 years. From living in his car to this. From running from his grief to building a life around it. From believing he was broken beyond repair to understanding that broken pieces could still create something beautiful. Feels like a lifetime ago, he said. Feels like yesterday. Both, Sarah agreed. She turned to face him. I never properly thanked you, you know, for staying. That first night you could have left. Should have left, probably. Some stranger's offer of a place to stay. That's a weird situation to agree to. Weirdest thing I ever did, Marcus said, smiling. Best thing I ever did. Thank you, Sarah said seriously, for being brave enough to walk over to those 2 lonely little girls at that fundraiser in your memory. For being brave enough to sit on a floor in an ER and sing a lullaby. For being brave enough to stay when every instinct told you to run. For being brave enough to let us love you. Thank you, Marcus replied, for seeing me when I was invisible. For offering me a home when I was homeless. For trusting me with your son when you had no reason to. For loving me even when I was barely holding myself together. For giving me a second chance at family. We gave each other second chances, Sarah corrected. That's how this works. They kissed, soft and sure, The kiss of two people who'd fought through hell to find each other and weren't letting go. Inside the house, Theo called out, not distressed, just wanting water. Sarah and Marcus looked at each other, shared a smile, and went inside together to take care of their son. Their son. Not born to them, but theirs nonetheless. Chosen, loved, family in every way that mattered. That night, after Theo was settled back to sleep, after Sarah and Marcus had gone to bed themselves, Marcus lay awake thinking about the journey that had brought him here. Emma's death. The grief that nearly killed him. Living in his car. That fever dream in the ER. The lullaby that changed everything. Theo's hand in his. Sarah's offer. The slow rebuilding of a man who'd given up. Jennifer's return and the terror it brought. Finding Theo again. Choosing to heal instead of drowning. All of it, the tragedy, the survival, the love, had led him here. To this bed, this house, this family. Marcus reached for his phone, opened his photos, found the picture of Emma he kept close. 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, her whole life ahead of her. I'm okay now, sweetheart, he thought. It took me a long time, but I'm okay. I found people who needed me. People I needed. I'm helping kids like you would have wanted me to. I'm singing again. I'm living again. I hope wherever you are, you're proud of your dad. I hope you know I'll never forget you. Never stop loving you. But I'm learning to live alongside the grief instead of drowning in it. Thank you for teaching me how to love. For showing me what it means to be a father. I'm using everything you taught me to be a dad to Theo now. He would have loved you. You would have loved him. I miss you every single day. But I'm not just surviving anymore, Emma. I'm actually living. And I hope, that's what you'd want for me. He set the phone down gently and turned to Sarah, who was already asleep, her hand reaching for him even in sleep. Marcus took her hand and closed his eyes. For the first time in 4 years, he didn't dream about the day Emma died. He dreamed about the wedding next month, about Theo in a little suit, holding the rings, about Sarah in white, smiling like she'd never been happier, about their future together, ordinary and extraordinary, mundane and miraculous, perfectly imperfect. He dreamed about being home. 1 month later, on a Saturday afternoon in early October, Marcus Webb stood in Sarah's backyard, their backyard now, wearing a suit that actually fit, his hands steady for the first time in years. 40 people sat in white chairs arranged in neat rows. Friends from the hospital, parents of kids Marcus worked with, Mrs. Patterson, Theo's beloved nanny, Detective Santos, who'd become an unexpected friend through the ordeal with Jennifer, Mrs. Chen from the old apartment building, who'd watched Elijah, who'd made Marcus realize he still had something to give. Wait, that wasn't right. That was the old story. Marcus shook his head slightly, smiling at his own confusion. Old memories mixing with present reality. That happens sometimes. Ghosts of other lives, other stories, bleeding through. Focus. Be here. Be present. Theo stood beside him in a navy suit that matched Marcus's, holding a small wooden box with the rings inside. He looked nervous but proud, his eyes scanning the small crowd, then finding Marcus and relaxing. You okay? Marcus signed discreetly. Theo nodded. Good, happy. Me too, buddy, me too. The music started. Not traditional wedding music, but a song Marcus had written specifically for this day. A song about broken people finding each other, about choosing family, about second chances and new beginnings. And then Sarah appeared at the end of the makeshift aisle, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. She wasn't being given away. She'd walked this path on her own for too long to pretend she needed someone's permission to make her own choices. She walked alone, strong and certain, toward the family she'd chosen. When she reached Marcus, she took both his hands, and he felt the rightness of it settle into his bones. Hi, she whispered. Hi, he whispered back. Their officiant, an old friend of Sarah's from medical school, began the ceremony with words about love and loss and finding each other in the wreckage, about how the strongest families aren't always born but sometimes chosen, about how healing happens in community, in connection, in the simple act of showing up for each other every single day. When it came time for vows, Marcus went first. His hands shook slightly as he pulled out the paper he'd written and rewritten a dozen times. "Sarah," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "3 years ago, I was living in my car. I was sick, broken, convinced I didn't deserve happiness or connection or love. I'd given up on everything except surviving until the next day." He glanced at Theo, who was listening intently. "And then I walked into an ER waiting room and heard a child who needed help. And instead of running like I'd been doing for years, I stayed. I sang a song I thought I'd never sing again. And you—" he looked back at Sarah. "You saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. You saw past the dirt and the smell and the obvious brokenness, and you offered me kindness I didn't think existed anymore." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face. "You gave me a place to heal, a purpose, a son." Marcus's voice cracked. "You gave me a reason to stop running and start living. You taught me that I could honor the people I've lost while still building something new. That I could carry grief and joy in the same heart. That broken doesn't mean worthless." He took a shaking breath. "I promise to show up for you every single day. I promise to see you. Really see you. The way you saw me. I promise to be Theo's father with all the love I have to give. I promise to choose you, choose us, choose this family every morning when I wake up. You saved my life, Sarah. Let me spend the rest of mine making sure you never regret it." Sarah was openly crying now, not even trying to hide it. She took a moment to compose herself, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand before speaking. "Marcus," she said, her voice strong despite the tears. "When Theo was diagnosed with autism, my husband left. He walked out on us because parenting got hard, because our son's brain worked differently than he expected, because love required more than he was willing to give." She squeezed Marcus's hands tighter, and for 2 years after that, I convinced myself I didn't need anyone, that I could do everything alone, that needing help was weakness. I worked myself to exhaustion. I barely kept my head above water. And I watched my son struggle with communication and connection, and I couldn't help him no matter how hard I tried. Sarah looked at Theo, who signed "I love you, Mommy" with his small hands. "And then you sat on a hospital floor and sang to him, and he responded to you in ways he'd never responded to anyone. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, needing help wasn't weakness. Maybe letting people in was actually the bravest thing I could do." She turned back to Marcus. "You didn't just help Theo. You helped me remember how to be human instead of just functional. How to laugh, how to rest, how to let someone else carry some of the weight. You gave me partnership when I thought I'd be alone forever. You gave Theo a father who sees him exactly as he is and loves him not despite his differences, but because of who he completely is. I promise to be your safe place when grief comes calling. I promise to honor Emma's memory and never ask you to pretend she didn't exist. I promise to build a life with you where we can be both broken and whole, where we can carry our losses and celebrate our joys. I promise to love you not because you saved us, but because of who you are, messy and real and perfectly imperfect." She smiled through tears. "Thank you for being brave enough to sing that night. Thank you for being brave enough to stay. Thank you for choosing us. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. The officiant cleared her throat, clearly emotional herself. "Do you have the rings?" Theo stepped forward, carefully opening the wooden box. 2 simple gold bands, nothing fancy, but meaningful. Marcus had spent 3 months saving for them, wanted them to be real and permanent and solid. Marcus took Sarah's ring and slid it onto her finger. "With this ring, I choose you, every day, for the rest of my life." Sarah took Marcus's ring and slid it onto his finger. With this ring, I choose you. Every day. For the rest of my life. By the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Marcus, you may kiss your bride." Marcus cupped Sarah's face and kissed her, soft and sure and full of promise. Their guests erupted in applause and cheers. When they broke apart, Theo was suddenly there, wrapping his arms around both of them, and they collapsed into a group hug, all three of them laughing and crying. A family, officially, legally, completely. The reception was small and perfect. Dinner catered by Sarah's favorite restaurant. Toasts that made everyone laugh and cry. Theo playing drums with Marcus on guitar, the two of them performing a song together that brought the whole party to their feet. As the sun set and the string lights came on, Marcus found himself standing at the edge of the yard, watching Sarah dance with Theo to some pop song the 9-year-old had recently become obsessed with. Detective Santos appeared beside him, holding a glass of wine. "You did good, Webb," she said. "Real good. Thank you. For everything. For finding Theo when Jennifer took him. For—" "Just doing my job," Santos interrupted. "But for what it's worth, I've seen a lot of families in my line of work. Broken ones, mostly. People who hurt each other because they don't know any other way. What you three have—" She gestured at Sarah and Theo. "That's special. That's the kind of thing that restores your faith in people." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I almost lost it. If Jennifer had—" "But she didn't," Santos said firmly. "You got him back. You kept your family safe. And Jennifer is getting the help she needs, locked away where she can't hurt anyone else. That's the ending you got. Not the tragic one. The hopeful one." She raised her glass. To second chances, and to people brave enough to take them. Marcus clinked his glass against hers. To second chances. Later, after guests had left and Theo was asleep upstairs, after 3 stories, 2 songs, and extensive reassurance that Marcus and Sarah would still be there in the morning, Marcus and Sarah sat on the back porch where they'd had so many important conversations. "We did it," Sarah said softly. "We actually did it." "Got married? Yeah, I was there," Marcus teased. Sarah laughed. "No, I mean, we survived. Everything that could have gone wrong. Everything that did go wrong. We survived it and came out the other side stronger." Marcus pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid reality of her against him. "You know what the hardest part was?" he said quietly. "Learning to believe I deserved this. That I deserved happiness after Emma. That choosing to live fully wasn't betraying her memory. And now? Now I know Emma would want this for me. Would want me to help kids like Theo. Would want me to love you and build a family and use my music to heal instead of hiding from it." He kissed the top of Sarah's head. "Grief doesn't end, but it changes. It becomes something you carry instead of something that carries you." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come to the ER that night? If you'd stayed in your car? If you'd been too proud or too scared to walk through those doors?" "All the time," Marcus admitted. "I think about how close I came to giving up completely. How close I came to dying in that car from pneumonia or grief or just giving up. If I'd waited one more day, one more week." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. "I think about it too," Sarah said. "I think about how many people probably walked past you in your car and didn't stop, didn't offer help, didn't see you as human. And I think about how easily I could have been one of those people. How easily I could have let pride or fear keep me from offering you that apartment." She turned to look at him. "We saved each other, Marcus. That's what I believe. Not that I saved you or you saved me, but that we were both drowning and we grabbed onto each other, and somehow we both made it to shore." "Together," Marcus said. "Together," Sarah agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. In the house behind them, their son slept peacefully, safe and loved. In their hearts, they carried the people they'd lost: Emma, Sarah's dreams of a different marriage, Marcus's former life, but no longer as weights dragging them down, as memories, as parts of their story that had led them here. I wrote something, Marcus said suddenly. A song. For tonight. I was going to perform it at the reception, but I got nervous. But I want to play it for you now. Just us. Please, Sarah said, smiling. Marcus got his guitar from inside, his constant companion, his therapy, his voice when words weren't enough. He sat back down and began to play. The melody was simple but beautiful. The lyrics were about emergency rooms and lullabies, about broken people finding each other in unlikely places, about choosing to stay when running would be easier, about building families from love instead of biology, about second chances and new beginnings and learning to live again after loss. I was invisible, fading away, living in shadows, just surviving each day. Then you saw something nobody else could see. You saw a person, not a tragedy. We were both broken, barely holding on, singing to ghosts from the life that was gone. But you offered shelter, and I found the nerve to believe that maybe I still had worth. This is our second chance, our beautiful start. Building a family with hope in our hearts. We carry our losses, but we're learning to live. Finding joy in the love that we freely give. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for loving through all that we're saying. We're more than our scars. We're more than our pain. We're proof that the sun comes out after rain. By the time Marcus finished, Sarah was crying again. Happy tears this time. The kind that come from being seen completely and loved anyway. That's beautiful, she whispered. That's us. That's us, Marcus agreed. He set the guitar aside and pulled her close, and they sat there under the stars, two people who'd found each other when they needed it most, who'd chosen each other every day since, who'd built something real and lasting from broken pieces. Inside, Theo stirred in his sleep and smiled, dreaming of drums and songs and a father who understood him, a mother who never stopped fighting for him, a family that was his forever. Outside, Marcus and Sarah held each other and marveled at the impossible beauty of this life they'd built together. And somewhere, maybe in memory, maybe in something more, Emma smiled too, proud of her father for learning to live again, for using his music to help other children, for finding love after loss. The lullaby had changed everything. One song in an emergency room, one act of accidental kindness, one choice to stay instead of run. That's all it took to save 3 lives and create a family. Marcus pulled back slightly to look at Sarah's face in the starlight. You know what I realized today? He said softly. What? I spent 3 years after Emma died believing I was being punished, that I'd lost my chance at family, at fatherhood, at happiness, that I didn't deserve another shot. He smiled. But I wasn't being punished. I was being prepared. Everything I went through, the grief, the loss, the rock bottom, it taught me how to be the father Theo needed, how to be the partner you needed, how to appreciate this in a way I might not have if it came easy. Sarah's eyes glistened. I love that. I love you. I love you too. So much it still scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared? Good scared. The kind that reminds me how much I have to lose, how precious this all is. Marcus kissed her forehead. I won't take it for granted. Not one single day. Neither will I, Sarah promised. They stood, Marcus's back protesting slightly. He wasn't as young as he used to be, and walked inside together, hand in hand, ready for their first night as husband and wife, ready for whatever came next, ready for the ordinary, extraordinary miracle of their life together. Behind them, the string lights twinkled in the empty backyard, celebrating a wedding that was really a beginning, a family that was really a choice, a love that was really a decision made new every single morning. The lullaby that had started everything echoed in the night air, carried on the wind, a promise and a prayer and a testament to the power of one song, one moment, one person brave enough to sing when the world expected silence. Hush now, soldier. Lay down your gun. The battle's over, the fighting's done. Stars are watching, moon standing guard. Sleep now, warrior, you fought so hard. And in the house, 3 people slept peacefully. A family, finally home. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please don't just keep scrolling. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this one. Parents who are struggling, people who feel invisible, anyone who's trying to rebuild after loss. They need to know they're not alone. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment and tell me what moment hit you the hardest. Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. Stories about real struggles, real sacrifices, real love. Stories about second chances and found families, and the courage it takes to let yourself be seen when you've spent so long being invisible. We're all just trying to find our way through the darkness. Sometimes a story like this reminds us that the light is still there, waiting for us to be brave enough to walk toward it. Thank you for being part of the Behind Every Heart Stories family. Your comments, your shares, your presence here, it matters more than you know. See you in the next one.